In the spring of 1209, large covered wagons appeared in Dorset, England. They were transporting two Scottish princesses, Margaret and Isabella, to Corfe Castle. One girl had just turned 16, while the other was 14, and soon they were to join another noble lady. For the past 7 years, Eleanor of Brittany, the granddaughter of the King of England, had been living in the castle. Her lineage allowed her to claim a right to the throne, which was precisely why she found herself imprisoned. At that time, Eleanor, known as the Pearl of Brittany, was 25 years old. In the 13th century, unless a lady chose the path of a nun, she was almost certainly already a mother. However, Eleanor had not been fortunate in her lineage. In fact, she had been too fortunate. She was the granddaughter of Henry II and Eleanor of Aquitaine. What did this mean? It meant that after the death of her childless uncle, King Richard the Lionheart, Eleanor had a stronger claim to the throne than her other uncle, John Lackland. But John ruled England. To prevent Eleanor from making any claims to the crown, he confined her to Corfe Castle. She was kept under strict supervision, as she had attempted to escape more than once. Nevertheless, considering her high status, the Pearl of Brittany was provided with servants, allowed to take walks along the walls, given decent living conditions, and even received gifts, such as a luxurious riding saddle. However, she was only permitted to ride in the courtyard of Corfe. At first, Eleanor tried to rebel, but over time, she realized the walls were strong, the servants were loyal to the king, and help was far away. For her freedom, she was willing to offer John her ancestral lands. However, upon learning of this, the Bretons protested. They disliked the idea of becoming subjects of the English king, so they proclaimed Eleanor's younger sister, Alice, as their duchess. Eleanor became the spare duchess. Meanwhile, John Lackland continued his long-standing war with King William the Lion of Scotland. The Scottish king was not faring well, and he was forced to send his two daughters to England. Formally, it was for the sake of peace, but in reality, it was to bring the king to his knees. Thus, Margaret and Isabella found themselves at Corfe Castle, where they soon met Eleanor. The three young ladies got along splendidly. The youngest among them, Isabella, struggled the most with confinement. She complained about her life and dreamed of escape. The numerous restrictions made the princess anxious, and she began to fall ill, which was reported to the English king. In response, John made some concessions. From then on, the girls were allowed to leave the castle for short periods, but only under guard. It was a start. What could they do together? They fantasized, read, and shared stories about what they had seen. Eleanor dreamily recounted how she had nearly become the wife of the Duke of Austria, but her suitor had died while she was en route. She had to turn back and spend a long time at the court of Eleanor of Aquitaine. Later, the heir to the French throne and the Duke of Burgundy had both sought her hand. But all these plans were dashed by John. For years had passed since the three princesses were confined in Corfe Castle. Records indicate that on Christmas, the king sent them gifts, dresses made of green fabric, richly embroidered cloaks, and shoes. It felt almost like mockery. Where could they possibly wear such finery? Those beautiful dresses lay untouched in trunks for another 3 years until the King of England passed away. The Scottish princesses regained their freedom at the insistence of the kingdom's de facto ruler at the time, William Marshal. The heir to the throne, Henry III, was still too young to make decisions. Margaret and Isabella embraced Eleanor one last time before setting off on their journey, as the Duchess's imprisonment was far from over. Not long after, Isabella of Scotland became the wife of Roger Bigod, the Earl of Norfolk. He was 14 years her junior, and it was not the happiest of marriages. Eventually, the Earl even sought to annul it, but the church intervened. Isabella and Roger had no children. Margaret of Scotland also married an influential English lord. She wed Hubert de Burgh. This man held significant positions under young Henry III and later became the Earl of Kent. The couple had one daughter, whom they named Margaret. And what of Eleanor? She faced the most unenviable future. The Bretons offered a ransom for their duchess, but the English refused to accept the gold. There's a legend that King John, on his deathbed, demanded that Eleanor never be set free. As a precaution, her guards were frequently changed, yet she was still treated as a person of royal rank. She received new dresses, beautiful furniture, and had a personal chef. The Duchess of Brittany spent 39 years in English strongholds. Eventually, the elderly woman, no longer able to bear children, was released to the monastery of St. James in Bristol, where she lived quietly and peacefully. According to the Lanercost Chronicle, in this final period of her life, Eleanor was gifted a golden crown by King Henry. Another perspective from English historians suggests that she commissioned it for herself. Regardless, the Duchess of Brittany did not keep this treasure for long. She bequeathed it to Prince Edward, the son of Henry III. This gift held special symbolic significance. Eleanor ultimately acknowledged the legitimate authority of those who had imprisoned her.